It's not about basically you think you have the best idea. Maybe the best idea is next to you. So I would say if you have 10 friends, take those 10 friends and say, okay, each one of them might have some negative aspect, but what are the most three positive things I can take from each friends, and I can incorporate it into my lifestyle.
Hi friends, it's Steve, and welcome to episode 67 of the Assyrian Podcast. In a world of rapidly changing technological shifts and data traveling from one place to another, it's incredibly important to have a way of communicating that's efficient, secure, and private. Today's guest, Francis Dinha, is the founder and CEO of OpenVPN. OpenVPN is a tool that creates a virtual tunnel from one place to another for the seamless and safe flow of data. This tool is being used across the world by companies like Google, Disney, Microsoft, and so many more. Francis is on the Forbes Technology Council. He's started multiple businesses, and he's a proud Assyrian. How cool is that? I was able to nerd out with Francis as we talked about topics like packet switching, VoIP, and Steve Jobs. Francis doesn't just talk and think about new ideas, he actually gives them life and he takes action. Being in his presence reminded me that anything is possible if you're willing to put in the work and let the fire within you lead. I think you're going to catch a feel for that in this interview as well. Francis is a technology giant, and we're going to roll the interview. But first, support for this week's episode of the Assyrian Podcast is brought to you by Tony Kalogerakos and the injury lawyers of Illinois and New York. If you know anyone that's been in a serious accident, please reach out to Tony Kalogerakos. Tony has been recognized as a top 40 lawyer and a rising star by Super Lawyers publication and has obtained multiple multi-million-dollar awards. Tony can be reached at injuryrights.com or 847-982-9516. Now, here is Francis Dinha. Thank you so much for being on the Assyrian Podcast. And I know that when I first connected with you at your daughter's concert, I thought we have to get him on the Assyrian Podcast. So here we are now, almost a year later. I want to begin with, where were you born and raised?
Well, thank you for inviting me, and I'm happy to be on your podcast. It's very interesting. Well, I was born in a village in northern Iraq, and maybe you've never heard of this village. It's called Belejane. Belejane, it's an Assyrian village, a very small town, very close to Ahmadiyya, way north at the basically boundary between Turkey and Iraq. Belejane is actually an Assyrian name. Belejane, if you translate it to real Assyrian, it's mean between the two gardens. So that's where I was born. I was born in a village called Belejane. That actually my dad and my uncles, they own almost, I would say 70% of the village.
So your parents were entrepreneurs. Your family had already was purchasing the land in Iraq.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, I guess you didn't have a choice. I mean, you had to, my dad, basically, he lost his parents when he was 9 years old.
How did he lose them?
They were part of the Assyrian genocide.
Okay.
So he was 9 years old, and he didn't know what to do. And he was raised by his aunt. And so he had to survive. And that's what he did. He worked, survived, since he was 9 years old. And then he saved money and saved until he bought the land, him and his brother.
Do you still own that land?
We still own that land. It's in northern Iraq. And actually, I visited northern Iraq in 2003.
Okay.
And I went to the village. And still, there were some, actually, part of my house is still there, where I was born. But I left that village when I was 5 years old.
And where did you go?
To Baghdad, because of the war.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened in 1960-61, when the Kurdish, they want to have their own independence, they were fighting against the government. So we were bombed, basically. So we had to escape the village. My two cousins were killed right there in the village. I remember. I was only 5 years old. I remember the war.
How were they killed?
Bombing. Basically, the airplanes came and just bombed the village. I mean, there was nobody had weapon there, just bombed the village.
Why did they bomb those villages?
Because actually, our village was down there, Ahmadiyya, there was a lot of soldiers there, Kurdish soldiers. So when the Iraqi army was coming over there, they were basically bombing everything, you know.
Oh, I see.
And
in case anybody's hiding
we
out.
got somehow and they bombed, and all I heard was just the earth was shaking. This is all I remember. And we had to run away, and then we were under the tree, and my mother, I say, "Are we dead or are we still alive?" She said, "No, we're still alive." Okay. So we had to actually escape and hide in caves. And I remember the cave that my dad used to have a rifle. And then I remember I fell, and all I saw was this helicopter coming. And he was so worried that the helicopter was gonna shoot and probably kill me. So he had to really save me and drag me into the cave. So that's how we survived. But I mean, the village was a very nice village. I mean, my dad, he was a farmer. I mean, we had everything, but then we had to start all from scratch. We had to escape northern Iraq and go to Baghdad. And we didn't even speak Arabic language.
You only spoke Assyrian?
We only spoke Assyrian, but we spoke Kurdish too. Because, at the time it was a Kurdish place. Like the school, they taught Kurdish and Assyrian. And we had villages such as Belajane, Bebade, Hamziye, Ahmadiyya. They were all Assyrian villages very close to Duhok. Duhok in Assyrian, it's called Nahadra. That's the place. It's only about actually an hour drive from Nahadra to Belajane. Beautiful. I couldn't imagine. When I went there and I saw my village, I said, my God, this is such a beautiful town. I mean, the mountain, the snow around it, it was just such a beautiful town.
You ever plan to retire there, maybe?
Not really. My brother, by the way, he built a house there.
Yeah?
Yeah. He lives in Sweden, so he goes back and forth, right? I don't know about retirement, but definitely, I mean, I might go there and visit my cousins.
Yeah.
Actually, I still have a cousin a couple of cousins, they live in Duhok, and they do have a house in Belajane as well. So they do commute back and forth there. And Belajane, by the way, they call it also the town Matit Sahde, because if you remember the Assyrian Democratic Movement, the Yosef, Yohanna, their graves are in Belajane. That's where they were born. They're my cousins. So I have also the history of political things when it comes to Assyrian and the Assyrian Democratic Movement.
And we can talk about some of that.
Yeah.
But right now I'm really wondering, you're 5 or 6 years old and you go to Baghdad, then what happens?
Well, in Baghdad, then we were lost pretty much, because you can imagine my parents with 7 kids, right?
7?
7 children.
Oh, wow.
7 siblings. And I was the youngest.
Oh my gosh, you're the baby.
I was the baby. And then we have some family, and luckily my sister was already there. She was married in Baghdad. So we had to live in one room, all of us sleeping in one room. So my dad has to work, basically, and then my sister. That's how we basically survived.
And your
Pretty
dad
much.
did agricultural farming?
He did, and not in Baghdad. In Baghdad, he started learning about being a carpenter and fixing stuff, and
Did he do any truck driving?
And he didn't drive. He just basically, at the time, we didn't have a car. I mean, in northern Iraq, as you know, Belajane, we didn't have even electricity. Mm-hmm. We were living in a land. Pretty much everything was very basic. Simple life, right? You can imagine you're going from a very simple life, you go to a city as Baghdad, right? Now you have electricity, Then now you land in a country, in a city, you can't even speak the language. And then you think you're a foreigner there because you can't speak the language. And then on top of that, the religion is different because now you were used to Assyrian, you were used to church, and now you're suddenly in a place completely strange, right? So basically I had to, also go to school. So they have to put me through the school, and I couldn't speak the language. So the kids used to make fun of me, obviously. Who's this guy? What planet is he coming from? He doesn't speak Arabic. But I was a very determined child. And at the end of the year, I was the first in the class. I had to learn the language, the Arabic language, and I was pretty much a very, very smart kid.
So
smarter than now.
Smarter than what?
Than now. I'm getting older.
No. I'm excited to talk about what you have going on now, but I really want to focus in on how did you guys end up moving from Iraq to United States?
Well, first of all, in Baghdad, before we moved to the U.S., I moved to Sweden.
Okay. You on your own, or
on my own first, and then I brought the whole family to
And
Sweden.
how old were you?
I was in my 20s, 21.
Okay, so 21, and Francis is really focusing in on freedom for himself and for his
freedom
family.
For myself. I didn't like the political system, the Ba'athist regime, the Saddam, all these things, what was going on.
You're like, we're done. We stay here.
I was involved a little bit. I was involved in political movements of Assyrian. I was involved with Sahda Yusuf, with Yunadam Kanna, who's the head of the Assyrian. We had these political parties, right? But I didn't see any future. I didn't see really any future in Iraq because of the rhetoric, because of all these dictatorship, and it was very scary. So I had to make decisions. And at the same time, I was very much into more, how would I say it, outgoing thinker. I was thinking about more music. I used to play guitar. I used to have a band in Baghdad, playing in weddings.
What's the name of your band?
It was Nineveh. The name of my band was Nineveh.
Okay.
So we used to play in a club in Dora, the Assyrian place, and I used to love music, ABBA music, Elton Jones and Beatles, and these are the type of songs I used to love, right? So I always was inspired by the Western world, the freedom. I had that hunger, so I decided.
How did you get that music? Was it readily available in Iraq, or was it underground? Like even listening to that music?
It wasn't exactly. I wouldn't say it was underground. Really. I mean, it was pretty common for a lot of bands to pretty much sing in all these songs and music and all that. But
you'd hear it on the radio.
And hear it on the radio. There was some special, like the Voice of America that was at the time.
Oh.
They shut it down after some time.
Because those thoughts coming in from the
West.
exactly.
From the West, they really didn't promote them. But there's still some of this music influence in Iraq. And even among some of the friends that I had, the Arab friends as well, they were involved in that. I mean, we actually played in even weddings, pretty large weddings in places where the dominant people were Arabs, and very enjoyed the music and all that stuff, right? So yeah, I mean, Iraq at the time was a little bit modernized, but unfortunately when Ba'athist regime took over, right, there was a shift a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. And a movement toward a different direction,
and so many people are leaving, and you go to Sweden.
I go to Sweden because I had a friend. We used to correspond through letters at the time. There was no internet. So I used to send him a letter. So I decided to say, okay, I'm going to fly to Sweden. So I flew to Denmark. I got a visa to Sweden, ended up in Sweden, and applied for asylum in Sweden, political asylum.
Yeah. And did you get it?
Yes, I got it. And then after less than a year, I got the whole family, my brother, my sisters, everybody there. one of my sisters, she was married and she has 7 kids, and then the immigration was saying, what the hell is going on? I mean, you get such a big family coming to Sweden. But we had a pretty good, and at the time, actually, Sweden, for them, Assyrian were pretty much unknown entity in Iraq specifically. There were Assyrian from Turkey, but from Iraq, it was very unknown for them. So I had to educate kind of the immigration about, okay, the story of the Assyrian, how do they live, and how we couldn't even practice our rights in Iraq. We couldn't even speak our language in school. We're not allowed, by the way, if there's a teacher in Assyrian, you couldn't speak in Assyrian with them. So it was not allowed at all.
So that's a major transition then now.
It was Sweden. A major transition going from Baghdad, from northern Iraq to Baghdad, then to Sweden, right?
Yeah.
Then in Sweden, I was very determined, I need to finish my education. So now I have to learn Swedish.
Yes.
Completely different language.
So you're like 21, 22, different language, and you're enrolling in college.
And enrolling in college, I had 8 months. I had to go intensive study of Swedish language. I had to pass that exam that they have special for language, and I did.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got submitted to the college. So I finished my computer engineering, electrical engineering, got my master in there. I was doing my PhD, and I was also teaching at the university. I was a research assistant there.
At the university?
Huh?
What university?
The university is called Linköping University. That was South Stockholm, south. It's a town where all my brothers and sisters, they live there. That's where I wrote them.
So you're powering through. You're getting the education. Tell me again what you majored in.
I majored in actually EE, electrical engineering, and master in computer engineering.
Okay, computer engineering.
Yes.
And what was even happening with computers in those days?
Actually, believe it or not much. However, but I tell you the history from Baghdad, because in Baghdad I went to college, and the college I was submitted to was also electrical engineering with something called control system, control theory. So at the time, we were studying in Baghdad, not computer engineering at this level, but we were studying computer at the very lower level, like the dashboards of AND gates and OR gates and NAND gates. We used to build logic.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went, I was very kind of fascinated about the Texas Instrument, the first calculator. I want to break it apart, and I want to know what's in it. That's how I was curious about it.
Yeah.
So I went to Sweden. And Sweden, you're right. I mean, even at the time, computer engineering, I had to build my own computers from scratch. Mm-hmm. Wire wrap that. Can you imagine wire wrapping computers and putting like a Motorola processor with all that stuff? And then I have to say, okay, now I have to write the operating system, because there was no such thing as an operating system. So I had to write the code in assembler. A very lower language, and even microprogramming to really kind of construct this. Then I was, in a way, a musician too. So I said, well, how about if I combine these two? Okay, so I start building a drum synthesizer and a synthesizer. So then I connect my computer with the synthesizer, and so I start programming and writing program from scratch, in basics and basically C. And trying to basically control these instruments. And even at the time, MIDI didn't even exist. The MIDI stands for Musical Instrument Digital Interface. You can see it in all these instruments, how you can connect, right? So I was very fascinated about that, about the music and all that. And believe it or not, even in school, one of my theses when I was doing my master was about music. It's how a computer can control the music. And I built a program around that as well.
Who got you your first guitar?
My dad. We couldn't afford it in Baghdad. He built it for me. He built it from scratch because he was a carpenter.
Wow.
I regret that. I wish I had that guitar.
He just figured it out himself, and he built a guitar.
Well, I told him exactly how it is. He said, okay, now we have to get the tree. We have to get the fingerboard. Mm-hmm. So he started, making it. So how are we going to make the body? Okay, let's go. In Arabic, that mankhal, what they call it, where they, he took that wood and he made the body of the guitar. So he basically soaked it in the water and got it out. And then we had to go to a place to get the strings. And he said, okay, now we have fingerboard. Now I have to have the fingerboard. How do we get that? So we start basically innovating, and me and Dad brainstorming about how we're going to fix this. And eventually we got the guitar. It didn't sound very, very good, but at least it was okay. I could play.
Where did your dad come from? Like, how is he so open-minded and helping his kid? And
my dad, he was a farmer, but he was a very humble man, and he was a very kind of wise, although he was not educated. But he came, as you know, I mean, he lost his parents when he was 9 years old. So he had to think outside the box to survive. The matter of fact, he told me when he was 11 years old, he stood at the river one time and he said, maybe I shouldn't live. He wanted to commit a suicide because he couldn't relate. Well, I mean, you can think about 11 years old. I mean, how can he survive, right? I mean, he was then, obviously he met my mom when he was in his, in his 20s, in the village he lived. And then in 1933, I was not born. Then we had the genocides of Christians and Assyrian in northern Iraq. And then so they had to escape to Syria. For 7 years, my dad and the family stays in Syria. And then he had to come back. Well, my dad, he was born 1902. But he witnessed 2 genocides. He witnessed the genocides of the Assyrian, the first one in 1912-15. And my dad used to tell me he was a kid, but he used to have a very long hair. So in Assyrian, they used to have a very long hair. And at the time, they had to cut his hair because the army was instructed, if you see any Assyrian with long hair, just chop their head.
Why?
Because I guess they don't like Assyrian. They want the genocides of the Assyrian.
No, I guess what I was wondering is, was there something specific about long hair?
I have no idea.
It was only that an Assyrian would have done.
And the Assyrian that they used to have a long hair.
Oh, I see.
And he did fought with Agha Butros as well, my dad, in the army of Agha Butros.
Wow.
Yes. He lived over 100 years. God bless him.
So you must have heard all these stories then.
Oh yeah.
So when you say that name, Agha Butros, it's someone that knew your dad very well, very closely.
He was in the army, and he was very young at the time. And Agha Butros, he was more of a uniter. I mean, he really united Assyria. And my family particularly, my mother, she's a Catholic, but my dad, he's more of an Assyrian church, Orthodox or Assyrian Madancha. We call it the Church of Assyrian. And we were kind of born in a family like half. It's like my sister, she was a Catholic. The other sister, she used to go to different churches. So we used to go to both churches. So we didn't see a difference. But then when we heard all these Assyrian, they're fighting, oh, we are Assyrian, we're Chaldean, we're this, we couldn't kind of relate to that, right?
Right.
Because we believed we were all Assyrian.
You were Christian in a non-Christian world.
Yeah, I mean that's very tough. It was very tough.
So,
but then Sweden was completely different. Very liberal, completely different. My family loved it. My dad, my mother. Well, finally they can go to church. There are a lot of churches. They can relate. But then the language is different. The culture is different. Right?
Well, it sounds like this diverse background and the hardships that your parents experienced, it really molded you into someone who's resilient, someone who's pushing. It's not like you showed up in Sweden and said, oh, perfect, I can live off the government now and relax.
No. I washed dishes there. Mm-hmm. And I was very determined. I remember that I used to work in a restaurant, in a hospital. And then the woman, she asked me, because I was not sure, what are you going to do, Francis? And I said, well, I'm going to study, I'm going to get my degree. I'm going to university. And she said, wow, so you're going to be an engineer? Yes, I said, yeah. She said, oh, one day you're not going to talk to us. And I said, no. I'm just studying now. She said, yeah, I wish you the best. So I was very determined. I mean, I had to survive, right? Work, wash dishes, whatever it took to get my degree. Right.
So you complete your degree, you're still loving and playing music. How do you end up in the United States?
I ended up in the United States because when I graduated, and actually when I was doing my PhD, I met this person. He's from India, my friend, and we were doing research together and publishing papers. We published papers. He was from India. His name is Ramamurthy. And Ramo, I used to call him Ramo, he was a great mind, very smart guy. And we published an article about actually speech recognition and speech synthesis.
Back in the 70s?
And back in the 80s. That was in the 80s. And we actually published it, and there was a presentation at Bangalore University in India. Mm-hmm. Okay, so he came here to Dallas. There was a lot of entrepreneurs from India at the time. And he called me and said, Francis, hey, there are a lot of opportunities in the US. You got to check here. We've got something here. I said, what? I said, we've got a company here. They really want to interview you. So that's what happened. They just paid my tickets and they liked me very much and offered me a position in a company in Dallas.
So how long were you
and
in
then
Dallas?
They got my H-1B visa. I mean, at the time, H-1B visa, I got it even before I landed in this country,
Because of all your technology, you are now getting all these connections, and you've got a job in Dallas.
I got a job in Dallas, and I was making $36,000 a year. that was a lot of money then. That was a company.
Especially for Dallas. That was
Dallas,
a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, my rent was $400 a month.
Mm-hmm.
So you can imagine, right?
Yeah.
And I was married at the time. I had only one child, Nineveh.
And where was she born?
She was born in Sweden.
Oh, okay.
She was born in Sweden, so we came to Dallas, and then we had our second child, Shauna, there in Dallas.
And she was born in Dallas.
She was born but we used to live in Plano.
Yeah.
You know where Plano? It's a
yes.
pretty nice area, right? But then what got me out of Dallas was the Silicon Valley, obviously, the Bay Area, everything, the technology. I used to work there.
But wasn't HP headquartered in Dallas? Or Ross Perot did a bunch of stuff.
Ross Perot was there. There was the Northern Telecom was there. There was Ericsson there. It was DSC Communications, which I worked for DSC Communications there. That was bought by Alcatel. And then I worked for Ericsson as well in Dallas.
Yes.
So I went back to Ericsson, and then again I went back to Sweden. But then, we spent about a couple of years in Sweden again. I said, this is not for me. I need to go back to US. I like really capitalism. Socialism, I lived in a country that was dictatorship, moved to a country that's socialist, and then came to more of a, capitalist
You're
country.
more of a capitalist kind of guy. You fit
Well,
better.
it depends how you look at it. Yeah, I'm more when it comes to, I'm fiscally conservative, definitely. I believe in really low taxes when it comes to corporations, but at the same time, I feel and I believe that we have to be socially responsible as well. So I don't know if I fit anywhere. I fit in the middle.
Exactly. Your country maybe hasn't come together just yet. So you went from Dallas back to Sweden. You're in Sweden. You want to come back to the United States.
I had my green card.
You still had your green card.
Yeah. I got my green card. I came here, and then in '96, when I came back, I say, okay, let's go just to the Bay Area. That's it.
Did you know anybody in the Bay Area?
I didn't. I knew Assyrian, my friends here, yeah, Assyrian. And then I was like, where do I go? San Jose, Milpitas, Morgan Hill. And then I met this guy and said, well, Modesto, but I don't want to be in Modesto on tour. Like, I understand all Assyrian out there, but I want to be close to high tech. And he told me, you know where? Pleasanton. So that's, I settled in
And for
Pleasanton.
people who don't know, because there's people, explain to people what's the value of Pleasanton in the Bay Area.
Well, Pleasanton is very interesting because Pleasanton, it's almost East San Francisco, North San Jose, but also, I would say, is it
it's about
West,
an hour from
West Modesto.
Yeah.
So it's the best of everything, right? And it's warm, it's hot, it's nice, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can get to San Francisco in less than an hour, and you can get to Modesto less than an hour, and San Jose. And it's kind of a bedroom community also for a lot of high-tech people.
Yep. And Livermore is right there. So there's
Livermore is right there,
Livermore
exactly.
Labs.
Livermore, you've got Danville, you've got Dublin, you've got all these places.
So what year do you move to Pleasanton?
It was 96, 97.
Okay. So 96, 97, you're there. You raise your daughters there.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you working?
Oh, there. When I came here, that's it. I started my first venture.
What was your first venture?
My first venture was called Newcom Technologies.
Newcom Technologies, C-O-M, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So I say Newcom. And the history behind that, I was working for Ericsson. When I was working for Ericsson, I was part of a team called Strategy Network Concept. So I was promoting the idea in Stockholm that, I was actually tasked with evaluating the new technology. They invested over $500 million in this new technology.
You say network com?
Newcom.
Okay,
But this is before that. When I was at Ericsson in Sweden, I actually evaluated that technology. For years they developed, and I said, this is a great technology.
What did the technology do?
Well, the technology, as you know, Ericsson is very much into the mobile, but they are very much into circuit switching. And I say, okay, the market is not moving towards circuit switching. There is a technology called ATM, asynchronous transfer mode.
Wait, slow down,
I know.
What does
so
circuit switching?
What's circuit switching? When you make a phone call,
yes,
right? It establishes a circuit between you and the other person. Okay. So there are circuit switches. Mm-hmm. These switches, they do all that stuff, right? But it's a technology that establishes kind of that circuit. So to bring your voice all the way from end to end, right?
Yeah.
But then the packet technology, the internet was developing.
Yeah.
At the time.
So just
that was in early 90s.
Yeah.
So I met with the CEO of Ericsson, Anders Eagle.
What's his name?
Eagle. Eagle is the bird, right?
Uh-huh.
And his name, great guy. And I met with the management. I said, that is not the direction you guys need to go. You need to go toward internet. Cisco is going to eat your lunch because we need to move voice over IP and over internet. And a lot of people there hated me for that, right? So that's really what kind of brought the idea of packet switching, and we need to start looking at a different technology and different ways of doing things. So you need to close this project. They eventually closed the whole project, by the way. That was a waste of money. And so I decided to say, okay, I'm quitting Ericsson really, because big companies know they don't move very fast. And when I started Newcom Technology, that was my first customer was Ericsson.
Okay.
So the first contract I got from them was about $500,000. So I got my first $500,000 of check after even a month of starting my first business. So that was good.
That's the way to do it.
That's the way to do it. So that's when I started my first business, and when I moved here to Pleasanton.
You were consulting about VoIP.
I was doing a packet routing switch at the time,
okay,
which basically was a generic technology to switch everything, not just the voice. But the idea is to build a platform that we can switch anything, so you can overlay the voice, the data, everything on top of it. But at the same time, the agreement, the way I did it with Ericsson, that I would own the intellectual property. They only get a commercial. So indirectly, they funded that for me. Mm-hmm. So that was, the deal I struck with them.
Yeah,
So that's when I made a lot of money through that venture,
You're creating the ability to move data rapidly at that time, and it's various types of data. It's not just, it's audio, it's video possibly, it's text, it's pictures.
Yes.
And you're creating the system that can make that happen fast.
Yes.
How much of that is connected to taking the musical instruments back in Sweden and hooking them up into computers and synthesizers?
Well, it's basically,
your brain works this way.
It's the same thing, right?
Okay.
So you're thinking about different direction, right? Because music is real time. When you're pressing on a keyboard or a guitar, you have to hear it immediately. It's a real time, right? So voice, you can't. And data is different. When you're browsing something, you can wait for something coming up, right? But in the voice, it has to be real time. So it was very important. The quality of service has to be there. I do have a patent, by the way, that's called synchronous packet switching. So if you Google that and my name, you're going to see that patent.
Synchronous packet switching?
Yes. So I said we have to synchronize the packets. And that's part of the patent was, the idea is, so that's when I started my second venture called Packet Stream. So meaning we have to stream the packets in order to do this, right? So quality of service is a big deal on the internet. Sometimes you see that these days, right?
Yeah.
These days.
Well,
and still we haven't solved that problem, by the way. We haven't solved that problem. So
where I've seen that come up is in ordering phone systems.
Mm-hmm.
QoS. It's always something that
always there.
People talk about.
But the QoS, the way it's being solved these days, it's mostly with queuing. So you put different level of queues, and you give them different priorities.
Mm-hmm.
So you say, I'm going to give it higher priority, but you're hoping, but priority is one aspect. The other aspect is the delivery time. How long, you cannot afford to have that packet to be delivered very much delayed, because if you have that delay, our ears will experience kind of echo.
Latency.
Yeah. And then you're going to have that, you have to do a lot of these echo cancellations and all sort of things you have in the packets, right? So still, even up to date, you see even the mobile phone, right? You still have, to some certain, when you make a phone call here, it's a circuit switching still.
Is it really?
It's still, yeah.
It's not, it hasn't.
Now, if you do a Skype call,
right, yeah.
It's over the internet. It's over packets.
Yeah.
So, but sometimes you see the quality might get degraded, right? Mm-hmm. Or if you use WhatsApp, you see sometimes, the quality of the signal is not good, and you lose the voice, right? Then you have to go to a different place and make sure your packets get on time. So it's a different technology.
And you launched one business, it was highly successful, then you went into your second business.
The second didn't do well.
Okay, what was it again?
The packet stream.
And why didn't it do well?
Because it didn't do well because it was not because of the technology and the product. It just, we got caught in the middle of the .com. The .com crash. It really, really affected us. So the VCs that we were raising money, the second round of financing, we got caught into that, and they decommitted. They said, we're not gonna. And at the time, we were just raising money. We were not profitable, because it was easy. It was very easy. It was all about technology and building and getting the momentum. So in a way, I learned more from the failure than the success. And that's when I started my third venture, which is OpenVPN.
Right.
Completely different, So you go from one success and you are very complacent about it. Say, oh, this is easy, right? I can do it again. And then you say, oops, okay, well, I haven't experienced this. It's just and then you go to the other venture and you learn way more from your mistakes than success,
People don't talk about failure as much as they talk about their successes, but yeah, it is our failures that really help us to make better choices and to be wiser in other ventures that come our way.
Oh, absolutely. You learn more from that, because otherwise, what would you learn from the success? If the success is just a very easy way and you get lucky sometimes, it could be timing sometimes, and you get very successful.
So you didn't lose everything though?
No, not really. No.
Because
I lost other people's money.
Yeah.
Some of mine too.
Yeah.
But I was very careful.
And other people cautious. Who were okay with taking the risk.
Yeah. These were venture capitals and
right.
people. Actually, the matter of fact, with this OpenVPN, when I started, I still have some of the angel investor who lost their money there. They came in and invested in OpenVPN as well.
So OpenVPN, for people who are not techie, what's OpenVPN?
Okay, so what is OpenVPN? Open is open. VPN stands for virtual private networks. So open stands for open source. What does it mean is it's transparent technology. What is a transparent technology compared to a closed technology? Transparent technology, that means you really make your source code available to the market, to the industry. So the expert and the industry can review it, can critique it, can see if there are any security problem with it. So all these things, it comes to the transparent technology. So that's when we decided that the model is for us, we're going to go with the open source. And on top of the open source, we can build our commercial version in terms of improving it, building a better management, a better UI, better user experience, and so on, right? To deliver it to businesses and so on, right? So VPN, think of it this way. It's really, think of internet today. Internet is not very secure, but it's very ubiquitous. It's everywhere. I mean, you sit here, you have internet access. It's a huge infrastructure anywhere in the world. But the idea of VPN businesses, if you have a business that it is distributed across the globe, or if you have remote workers are working, say, in Starbucks from home, but they have internet. So how do you connect them to your private network and have them access to private resources, private data, because you don't want to expose that information to the public internet. It's not like going to Google or going to Facebook. You don't want to do that because you have mission critical application. You have data that you want to secure and you want to encrypt. So VPN, what it does is you install the VPN app in your, whether it's you have an iPhone or and whatever smartphone you have, or you have your PC, your Mac, you install that app. It creates a tunnel and it encrypts everything, and it tunnels all the traffic to a server that's sitting in your private network or private cloud that eventually bring that, but everything is encrypted. So it uses the internet as a transport from point A to point B to secure that data. So there is no man in the middle can look at your information, can attack that information.
Even if they see it, it's encrypted.
It's all encrypted. It's all kind of just basically scrambled, pretty much. Mm-hmm. They can't see anything.
And what gave you the idea to do OpenVPN?
Well, when I met James Yonan, he's Assyrian, he's Assyrian, he's the co-founder of OpenVPN. He's the guy who wrote the open source. When I met him, he didn't know what to do with it. He was doing it as a hobby, and he's got some. And I had the idea of, okay, I believe the internet is insecure. So, and there were some SSL VPN, some VPN, but the VPN, they were very limited in terms of boxes. You have to buy a physical box and install it. And I said, what about if we do this more in a much more scalable way, more software? And then when I met James, I said, this is what I want to do. So we got together and we say, okay, why don't we merge our idea? So that's when really the whole business was born.
And how did you know James?
James, I found him actually pretty much on the web and the internet, and I hired him as a consultant initially because I started my business, and I say, well, James, I want to build this stuff, and I see you're doing something very similar. He said, yeah, I'll be definitely. So I hired him as a consultant working with me, and then we met. He flew over here, I flew over to Boulder. He still lives in Boulder, and he loves to work from home, and so he had this mind of, he's brilliant in terms of coding. And I immediately recognized Jim's capabilities and really intellectual capacity and what he can do. And he's very much into Linux and operating systems. So I understood that. I saw the value. I said, this is what I want to do. And then he looked at me, yeah, I don't think that's possible. I said, yes, it's possible. We can do this. So that's when we start brainstorming about a lot of things about how we're going to do this, how we're going to achieve this. So then, I actually, met with some of the investors, raised, closed a little bit over $1 million in the first round of financing. And we've never raised money after that. It was angel, investors.
And it's really taken off.
It's taking off. We're very profitable. It's growing, it's, OpenVPN is being deployed by Google for their IT. It's Salesforce uses OpenVPN as well. Our commercial product, we have more than 50 million downloads. We get about 1 million downloads a month. It's just growing, We're experiencing growth of north of 70% revenue growth rate every year. So.
And that's your third venture.
This is my third venture, and maybe it's my last one.
But your first one and your second one was enough failure and enough success to really get you to hone in for this third one.
Yes. Really, I learned a lot of things that I did this differently. And one of the things I decided that not to get really venture capitalists involved in this. Now, that doesn't mean this is right for everybody, but this was my model, basically. I want to basically organically grow this, rather than going and raising money from venture capitalists.
And you were able to do that.
And I was able to do that. I mean, there's two models. I mean, either you raise money, and basically it's like the unicorn, and you have to be sure. You have to have a good business plan. You have to have a good executions plan, and you take the money, you run with it, but you have to be very sure you're going to meet your milestones. If you don't, you're going to crash and burn, pretty much. The organic growth is different. It takes time, but you're going to do a lot of mistakes. It's like climbing the mountains. There's two ways to reach the top. Either you take an elevator or you climb it.
Mm-hmm.
So climbing it and doing it organically, it's very hard. But once you reach the top, the strength you gain, it's amazing. Then you're going to be able to compete very, very effectively.
And right now, you're just loving life. You're loving doing OpenVPN, and
I like it.
And now you're a new grandpa, right?
I am. Yeah.
I think you still have a lot of time in you to do pretty awesome stuff.
I think so. I think we will be in a couple of years, 2 to 3 years, we will be very well positioned for an IPO. Now the question whether we're going to do an IPO or we're going to exit, we had number of offers last year and this year. Venture capitalists, private equity companies want to acquire us, but still, it's not all about money, because if you're focused it's all about money, then forget it. If you don't have the passion for what you're doing, then don't do it. Because if your ultimate goal is money, there are other ways of making money, because money is it's gonna come. It's not something you have to strive after. I mean, if your goal is to make money because you want to buy a new car, or you want to buy a bigger house, you're going to do this. I mean, a lot of people tell me, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you go and get your private jet or do this? I said, well, but these are not the things that excite me, right? The things that excite me is really to build a venture, to build something that you can really make a difference in this, especially in the security business that we are in, right?
Well, I'm inspired. I think when I think about your life and just what we've learned during this time is movement. There's just been a lot of movement, and you are fascinated by the movement of data and following the trends and being a pioneer in that world. Is it safe to call you a pioneer in that world?
I don't know what you can call me. I'm just me, right? But I get excited. I always get ahead of myself. I get always new ideas. Sometimes it's good and bad, because I always go to my engineering and I say, hey, what about we need to do this, because I see a lot of things, what's going on in the marketplace, right? I see things maybe only few people see. I mean, that's the idea of vision, right? You put together all these puzzles and you say, oh my God, there are some new opportunities that are coming. And then you don't have the resources to execute all that, because you've got all these resources that are working on building a venture. So I believe in kind of walk, run, and then fly. It's like the acceleration. It's like the airplane when it takes off, right? You just get the momentum and then you take off. So it takes a lot of work, right, to get there, So I'm getting used to it, although I want to do a lot of things. I want to get involved in a lot of things, but on the other hand, I don't have all the capital, right? Maybe after this venture, right?
You'll be able to
I would be able to do a lot of things that I want to venture into. Might not be just technology, might be into biotech. I'm very fascinated about biotech too. So there's a lot of things right now happening in biotech.
Tell me about your relationship with Assyrians. What's that been like over the last 20 years?
My relationship with Assyrian, it's good, but I've been I haven't been very close to a lot of activities. I would have liked to be closer to more maybe political activities. Some of the things I was very engaged years back when I was in Sweden.
But then you just became disillusioned with all of it and said no more?
Well,
or
it's a combination of a lot of things. It's a combination of I got very busy with my venture, but also there's a combination of a lot of Assyrian. There's just too many different political views, and it's very hard to bring them together.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? There's just too many issues we have, and I think sometimes the Assyrian, we're not very realistic about our goals and what we want to achieve. I understand we all have dream to have our own country and land and all that, but we have to be real about, what's going on in the Middle East, what's going on in Iraq, right? We have to be realist, and just having a dream. It's good to have a dream, right? But at the same time, you have to have a plan. And for me, as an entrepreneur, and as a business person, I believe in you have a vision, but at the same time you have to set a plan. When you set a plan, you also have to measure what is the objectives you're trying to reach, and if you don't reach them, you have to adjust. So I'm very practical.
Yep.
And that just doesn't fit with a lot of Assyrian and especially in the political arena. It's just like
there's a lot of
excitement, there's a lot of talk, but no action.
So maybe you're the guy to say, you know what, my venture is doing great. I'm taking the bull by the horns, and no one's gonna get in my way.
I don't know about that. I don't know. I think there are a lot of Assyrian who are way more qualified than me. I do have a lot of respect for a lot of Assyrian who are really venturing into politics, and they're very much doer. But the irony is a lot of these doers, somehow they get alienated, and it's sad.
Mm-hmm.
Because here's my philosophy. When you do work, you do make mistakes. But if you don't do anything, you don't expose to any mistakes. So the Assyrians who are silent and quiet and not doing anything, they can criticize the people who are working hard, who are on the fields. Of course they're going to do mistakes. So I've seen it, and I've seen it with my friends. I've seen it with a lot of my colleagues and people in the Assyrian Democratic Movement and other parties, and it's sad.
It's too much criticism.
There's too much criticism.
I agree. And I think that's what I love about being and doing the Assyrian podcast is we're really interested in inspiring and encouraging Assyrians all around the world. And what I love about your story, Francis, is you are someone who you took advantage of all the opportunities that life gave you. You didn't say, oh man, poor me, I'm from a small village in Iraq, and look, I had to move to Baghdad, and I'm the youngest of 7, and my dad, his parents, what they went through. You show up in Texas, and you start working, you go back to Sweden, you come back to Bay Area, and you're trying to do what's right.
Absolutely. I was in Baghdad when I was 11 years old, going in the street, and the government is hanging people and killing people in the middle of the street. And some people, when they interview me here in other podcasts, right, I was telling them, they're asking me, they say, how come you don't have post-traumatic disorder? I said, what is it? I say, you know what? For me, that was all noise. For me, I understand that's not the life I want to be. I understand I felt very bad. But I was like, there's got to be a better life for me. I have to look forward. I have to be positive. There are more positive things in this life.
So, Francis, if we create a time machine or a fountain of youth happens, and now you're living for another 100 years, no problem. Mm-hmm. You know for a fact Francis living.
I think I might live another 100 years.
Excellent. All right. So then you already know this. What do you do with your energy and time?
I always have energy, and I think there's always things to do because life is endless. For me, there's just so much to learn and so much to contribute to the society and so much to just build, right? I mean, I get fascinated about, more I do, more I want to do, more things, right? I mean, that's part of how my brain is wired. And as an entrepreneur, that's how you should be, right? You should never give up. I mean, age shouldn't be the really determining factor of saying, well, gee, I'm going to work for 10 years and then I'm going to make enough money, I'm going to retire. I don't think I'll ever retire,
Yeah. I've heard that someone said retirement is working for who you want when you want.
That is true.
Or actually the other piece to it is retirement is working with who you want when you want. I don't know if I just repeated the same thing.
Well, retirement for me, it's a financial freedom.
Sure.
Okay? So, I've had financial freedom for the last, maybe I've had financial freedom anyhow. Since I stepped out of Iraq, I had my freedom. And then I had my financial freedom maybe 25 years ago. I could do anything, right? I haven't worked for... At the same time, I've created a similar environment in my business. I give a lot of autonomy, but at the same time, with accountability to my people. So it's a different culture. Even the culture within the business is different. And people are very inspired with this. I've got the employee who've stayed with us 8 years, 9 years, 10 years. It's not like, we get employee, they survive or they just basically leave the company. Pretty much. That's where our culture. And I honestly, we have the best of the best because we hire the best people and we don't care whether they are in Silicon Valley or they are in Ukraine, in Kyiv, or they are in Finland, and we have people all over the world.
You mentioned that Ukraine programmers are some of your best programmers.
They are great programmers. We have great programmers in Ukraine, Norway, Italy, Finland, Netherlands, and the US. So
wonderful. So one thing I wanted to ask you is, if you could name for me, who are 2 or 3 people that totally inspired you?
2 or 3 people, you mean at the...
Like you mentioned your dad. Your dad obviously had a
My dad inspired me a lot, actually. And I think I would say also my brother. My brother, he was a teacher of physics and math. He inspired me. And definitely, I would say in the US, obviously, Steve Jobs inspired me a lot.
Are you the Steve Jobs of Assyrian?
No, I don't think
you
so.
are.
I don't think
you
so.
are.
So Steve Jobs, it's an amazing. There are a lot of his characteristics I like in terms of his visions, and he does dare to do things that's not being done by other people, which I really like and I admire about him. But also I admire his outlook about life and how he didn't live as many years. I wish he was still alive, right? He could have done amazing things on this earth, right? So I think from that perspective, yeah, my family, my dad and my brother has been pretty much, always my brother. He encouraged me to study and basically he was the person not as much, very much into religion because he studied physics, and so he was much more thinking outside the box. But then yet my dad, he was very a person of faith and religion, and so there was that balance,
Yeah, I think that sometimes religion it creates barriers for people to think outside the box. It sort of holds people within this system or way of viewing the world that prevents them from seeing, all the options. So then when an atheist comes around, it's a breath of fresh air. This person, they see things that religious people would never see because their whole system blocks them from even entertaining these ideas.
Yeah, that's what my dad used to tell my brother. What are you teaching your brother? You start having all these discussions about God and things like that because pretty much my brother, he was not really into religion at all.
Very interesting. So if you could say one thing to all the Assyrians all over the world who listen to the Assyrian podcast, what would you say to them?
Well, I would say follow your dream, basically, and be very persistent and be consistent and don't give up. I mean, you have a dream and you want to follow that, just do it, and don't let other people tell you what's good for you. I mean, whatever it's good for you, you have to follow those dreams and have the passion. But the passion is very important. But the other things, don't be afraid to fail, and don't be afraid to really admit your mistakes, but follow, be humbled, and basically take advice. Bring the best of the best around you. It's not about basically you think you have the best idea. Maybe the best idea is next to you. So I would say, if you have 10 friends, take those 10 friends and say, okay, each one of them might have some negative aspect, but what are the most three positive things I can take from each friends, and I can incorporate it into my lifestyle? You would be basically the best person.
I like that. And I think for our Assyrian listeners and just people who listen to this, making sure you have those friends in your life that will tell you the truth, and they will challenge you, and they will, like you said, you might not have the best idea. The person next to you might have the best idea, or sometimes it's the person you don't even like who actually has the best idea, but you're saying be open to that, listen to that.
Oh, absolutely. That doesn't mean if a person has some negative aspects that everything is negative about them, right? But listen to some other things. Maybe they might have some positive things to tell, right? I mean, as an example, when I was starting my business, honestly, I went to a person that he didn't know anything about the technology, but I have valued his view. And I said, what do you think about this business model? And he would criticize it. No, I don't believe in this. I believe in this. And I would listen. Or I would go to my daughter, or I would go to my brother, or somebody next to me and ask, what do you think about this? Just a simple person, right? Next to you.
Yep. Wonderful. Well, thanks for sharing your wisdom.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for being on the show.
Well, thank you.
And
appreciate it.
We'll reconnect with you in a few years and hear what the latest and greatest is.
Well, let's see.
Great. Thanks for hanging with us on this episode of the Assyrian Podcast. If you like what you're hearing, don't forget to hit the subscribe button wherever you listen to the podcast. Share it on your social media and tell your friends. And please don't forget to rate and review us on the iTunes Store. It really does help. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next time.